Hey friend, Michelle Dennis Evans here. Welcome to Creator to Write, where we turn blank pages into finished work. You'll be encouraged, inspired, and learn practical strategies to move forward with your writing, whether you're just starting out or ready to level up your craft. And if you're looking for ways to support your creative work with an additional income stream, I'd love to chat with you. Please reach out on social. Now for today's episode. Today I have a guest all the way from America. Well, welcome to the show, Justice.
Hey, Michelle, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. And
Awesome.
I would love to hear a little bit about you, where you're based, what you write, and why you started writing.
Absolutely. So, as you said, my name is Justice. I am located in Orlando, Florida, and currently I write historical fantasy. And I began writing actually when I was a kid. And so, as a kid, I dreamed of being a filmmaker and going on to direct films over at Disney or Pixar. And so, from a very young age, from 7 to 8 years old, you would see me with a camera in hand, and I would be filming my toys and making sequels to my favorite films. And throughout my childhood, that just continued to develop. I was a super into Lego stop motion. And so I would spend half my time watching movies like Lego stop motion movies on YouTube. And then I would spend the other half of my time trying to go make my own Lego stop motion films. And so as a kid, you'd either see me with the camera or you'd see me watching films on my phone. And that sort of ruled my childhood. And it eventually evolved into making movies with my friends. We would dress up in costumes and we would go out, we'd make a film, we go back together, we get home, we edit it, and then we'd proudly go show it to our parents. And so, as long as I can remember, storytelling has always been my preferred method of communication. It wasn't necessarily always writing novels or writing fiction, but it was story in some form. And throughout my childhood, I sort of explored in different mediums. I would do short stories, I would write comic books, I would do picture books. So any story was truly my passion. And it wasn't until I was probably around 15 or 16 years old that the idea of writing a novel even popped into my head. For some reason, I assumed that novels were books that ancient people wrote many years ago, and that was not a task that someone like me or someone young could actually take on. And it wasn't until I moved to Orlando, Florida, that I discovered that my best friend and his siblings were writing their own books. Specifically, they're writing fan fiction off of Star Wars and Marvel films. And I thought that was pretty cool. And at the time, I was pursuing a dream in my head of becoming like an animator at Pixar or a director at Pixar Animation Studios. And when I realized that I could not have to necessarily go to college and wait to go make those movies, I could start now writing them out. I could build out my own world on paper without having to pay $100 million to make it. That was very attractive to me as a 15-year-old. And so immediately I just was completely encaptured by the world of writing because it was almost as if the movies I wanted to make were such small scale. I could finally make what was in my head basically become reality very quickly in a very easy process. I didn't have to go hire directors or filmmakers and actors. I could literally make whatever world I wanted by myself. And so that was really cool to me. And I started writing fan fiction, and I wrote fan fiction for years before I even embarked on any original stories. I didn't realize it. And I think for about 2 years, I would just write fan fiction. And it was around that time that I realized that I was probably wasting my hours crafting something that I could never release to the world. At least I couldn't make money off it. I couldn't publish a book. And it was around that time that a dream dawned on me of what would it look like if I could, instead of dedicating all my time to writing about other people's characters, to write my own characters and publish something that would make an impact on other readers. And so I embarked on this journey of writing my first novel at the time, which was a historical fiction. And I somehow had it in my head that this was going to be like the great American novel. I don't know what it was about 17-year-old me, but I knew that it had to be perfect. And truly the dream and like the passion of writing something that other people would read and claim to be their favorite or claim to be an influence on them was really attractive to me. And even that goes back to my childhood. Anytime I would create a film, I was so excited to show it to people. I was so excited to sit back and watch the reactions. And I think that was really what was admirable to me about writing a book, is that I could get potentially a book in the hands of hundreds or thousands of readers, and they would have that same reaction that I had when I would watch back my old films or movies. And so that's how I sort of started writing in general.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And have you made any mistakes along the way? Can you share anything that could help others?
Oh my goodness. So mistakes are the writer's journey. Mistakes are your friend. I do not believe that I would be where I am today. I am only 21 years old, but I have grown so much in the past 4 years simply because of my mistakes. And I truly don't believe that you can become a good writer, become a great writer, unless you try and try again and you fail. And to me, a big lesson that I've learned recently in the past year that's just completely changed my life, changed my writing life, changed my relationships with people is that as a human being, we have a natural tendency to look at the world around us and we sort of compile different people, figures, books into this dream image in our head of where we want to be, where we want to go. And so we'll craft this perfect vision of our future selves that we want to become that's made up of fragments of other individuals. And we'll chase that idea, we'll chase that perfect book in our heads that we're comparing to other writers, and we'll allow that be the goalpost by which we measure our success and measure our distance. So every time I would write, I would look at what I had written, would step back, and I would immediately be discouraged because it wasn't as good as the writers I was comparing myself to. It wasn't as good as the other creatives. And this was an ongoing battle throughout my entire childhood, my entire life, is I would look at the world around me and I would wish I was there where I was really back here. And I think it's a dangerous trap that a lot of the world falls into, not just the writing world, which is that you compare yourself to other people's success. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how hard you try to get from point A to point B, you'll never truly get there because they're not you and you're not that person. And so when you look at someone else's goalpost, it's a constant moving goalpost for yourself because as you get to that goalpost, you pass your other achievements and don't even realize it because the goalpost keeps shifting. You keep changing what your idea of happiness is. And so the solution to this, which is a incredible concept that again, it seems so self-evident, it seems so simple, yet not many individuals actually see it this way, which is that instead of comparing yourself to other writers, the best thing you can do is to compare yourself to your past self, to compare yourself to how far you've come because you're on your own journey. You're on your own writing path, own writing career that is different from Jane Austen's. It's different from J.K. Rowling. You're not going to be that writer. And so if you look at your past self, see how far you've come over the span of 1 year, 6 months, 90 days, and you start measuring yourself by your progress, asking yourself, did I write more this week than I wrote last week? Did I write more in the past year? Has my writing improved? Have the reviews improved over my previous books? Are readers taking my books more kindly? And if you compare yourself to your past self, it frees you up to become the person you want to be because all that matters is that past metric. As long as you're growing, nothing else truly matters. As long as you're taking steps, you're advancing. If you can look at yourself 1 year ago today and see that you're a night and day person, that you have completely become a different human being, that way, then once you do that, you can readjust, your goals, and then you can go off of there. And so this has been a mindset that has just changed my life, both in my family life, my relationships, my work life, is allowing myself to sit down every couple of weeks and write down my achievements. And when you do that exercise, you write down, okay, in the past 90 days, I did X, Y, and Z. I wrote 5 chapters in this book. I developed an outline. I world built. I made a map for my story. And you start realizing very quickly that you actually are making progress. And the danger of comparing yourself to other people is that you lose track of your progress very quickly because you're not looking at that distance of where you traveled. You're only looking at how far you truly come. And so that is honestly the biggest lesson and mistake that I've made is that I spent the first 20 years of my life only comparing myself to others. And I never allowed myself to compare myself to my past self. And again, it's not something that I necessarily am perfect at. I fall into the trap still every day, but now I'm aware of it. And by doing those exercises, writing down, and I like to do them every week if I can. Some people do it every day. And I just write down, what did I accomplish this week? And that helps me to understand that I'm not constantly just running in place like you're on a hamster wheel. That's often what it feels like. And when you write down those tasks, you truly realize that, oh, you are moving. You may not be moving as fast as somebody else, but it doesn't matter because you've already traveled a considerable distance from where you started.
Very wise words from the 21-year-old. Thank you, Justice. Absolutely. Comparison is a thief of joy when you compare yourself to others, and it doesn't steal our joy when we just compare ourselves to our past self. It just shows what we've done. So, very wise words. Thank you for that.
100%.
And what have you found the hardest thing so far about being a writer?
The hardest part about being a writer to me is choosing when to stop. I am very much a person who will procrastinate, and I know most writers are. I haven't met a writer who doesn't procrastinate. And often writers will either they won't start or they won't finish.
Mm.
Both are equally poisonous. I have fallen into both traps. When I was writing my first book, it took me 9 months to go from idea to starting to write because I literally wanted to get my outline so perfect that I didn't write a word for 9 months straight. And in that time, I didn't feel like I wasn't writing. I would sit down, I would research character names, I would make myself busy, but I wasn't truly making progress. And then when I actually started, I did not want to finish. I would rework, I would reread, do another edit. And I think that writers often fall into that trap of like rinse and repeat, where they just will keep refining and refining and refining until it's perfect. But I don't believe that it's possible to make it perfect. I believe that there's a certain point where you do the best you can and then you trust God and you allow him to work through that. And I always say that your first book will not be your best. It's not possible, but you can't write that second book until your first book is written. You can't publish your second book until the first book is published. And it is a long journey, but often the best things in life do come with time. They do come with refinement. Nothing comes in a day. And I truly believe that, again, the biggest trap I fall into is just I will not, if I don't have a deadline set, I will keep going. I'll keep moving. I'll blow past that deadline over and over and over. And so what's helped me in that area is I will commit to sources outside of myself. I will give myself the time I think I realistically need to finish a project, to finish a chapter, to finish a book. And I often like working in smaller increments. I won't say I'm going to finish a book by January of next year. I'll say I'm going to finish the first two chapters by November 1st, right? And I will commit to something. I'll go to a family member and I'm going to say, hey, this is my task. This is what I'm doing. I want to make sure that I hold myself accountable. And if I don't, I'm going to come tell you. And just the act of a human being going to another person, having to confess when they failed is not fun. You don't want to confess that you failed. I like to add in some fun little elements to it. Like I have a sister and I tell her, I'm like, hey, if I don't go to the gym in the morning, I'm going to pay you $100. And that is motivation for me. I don't want to pay my sister $100. I want to pay my sister $10. And I like making a game out of it. So another thing I've seen people doing, writers do, is to reward themselves. They'll say, okay, if I write two chapters by November 1st, then I'm allowing myself to go watch my favorite movie, or allow myself to go buy a Starbucks drink. Little rewards are incredibly helpful to the human brain. It's for some reason it's addicting to get a job done, even if it's a
The
massive project
dopamine.
for a small reward. The dopamine just gets you.
Yeah.
And so that I would say is my biggest struggle is truly it's deadlines, sticking to them, and understanding that if I do not have a deadline in place, it's never going to be finished. It never will. And that's just the truth. So I'd say deadlines.
Yes. Deadlines are great. And I, years ago when I started writing a book, I just kept starting and I was never happy and just kept starting a new one,
Mm.
starting a new one, or starting the same one. And I came across an event called NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And that was when I penned my first novel, which is Spiraling Out of Control. And then I used that every year to write 50,000 words in a month just to get that out of my head and stop starting again or procrastinating that start. So I would just do a focused writing, and I've got a bunch of novels now penned that I need to edit and get out, but I have written most of my work in November and then worked on it throughout the year. And that brings me to NaNoWriMo is no longer, but what are you bringing to the table that is really exciting?
Well, you brought up a really great point with NaNoWriMo, and there's a reason why there were 400,000 annual attendees in their previous year of 2024 because it was effective. NaNoWriMo, it worked. People showed up year after year because they knew it was a guaranteed way to finish the book. And there's multiple aspects to that. I believe that the community, of course, is a big aspect to it. And also the deadline. It was incredibly attractive because it wasn't, again, it's the idea as well of committing to somebody other than yourself. Because when you're in that community, you suddenly have 400,000 people that are supposedly achieving that goal. And you think if I don't achieve that goal with them, then who am I, right? And that's why I think NaNoWriMo is so effective. Also, I wrote my first book during NaNoWriMo. That's also what helped me similarly to you because I had enough. I heard of the event, I think a month before, so October of 2022. And I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, this is what I needed. And yeah, so as you mentioned, unfortunately, NaNoWriMo did shut down. And I found that out in March of this year. And it just broke me because I have a special place in my heart for Nano. I love the event. It is responsible for why I'm here talking to you today. I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have published my first book. I wouldn't have even written my first book if not for NaNoWriMo. And so I adore the event. And I always tell everybody that NaNoWriMo is what helped me write my book, but it never truly helped me get across the finish line. NaNoWriMo gave me a deadline. It lit a fire under my butt, but it didn't bring me peace because at the time, being a procrastinator, I was so afraid of what the world was going to think of my story, even though I craved that. I was so scared of what my family would believe, what my friends would think. I would publish the book and I'd be shamed. I had all these thoughts like surrounding me when it came time to publish. And that's why I always say what got me across the finish line wasn't the goal. That got me across writing, but it didn't give me the peace and confidence to hit that publish button. It didn't give me the confidence to hire the editor. And what it did, and I give full credit, is to Jesus Christ. And to me, my entire existence, my entire meaning, and why I'm here and my mission is all to do with a verse, which is 1 Peter 4:10. This is my favorite verse. I first heard it back in high school and it stuck with me. And it is a verse that I repeat every day. I have it in my email signature. This is the verse, and the verse is 1 Peter 4:10. And the verse goes, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's very grace. I personally believe that this is saying that all of us have been given a natural desire to some sort of creativity, that your desire to write is not accidental. An actor's passion for the art is not accidental, that God has implanted these desires on our hearts, desires to go help the sick, the widows, the orphans, that these desires are placed on us by God. So the first part of the verse is each has received a gift. And the second half is as good stewards of God's very grace. And the word steward is particularly attractive to me because I think a lot of people misunderstand the word. Steward comes from the Greek word oikonomia or oikonosis, which means manager of the household. And most people assume that the manager of the household, that their job is simply to watch over the home while the master's away, make sure there's no fires, make sure that the maids are in check, the children are okay, they get out the door okay for school, the crops are all right. That's what most people assume the manager's job is. However, the manager's job, in accordance to the Bible, is actually much more. Their job is not simply to watch over the home. Their job is to return the home in a better state than when the master left. Their job is to multiply the crops. Their job is to go out and start new business deals, to bring in more revenue, to make the home healthier, happier, and brighter while the master's gone. That is the true task of a steward. So if we zoom out and we see the verse again, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's very grace. That's saying that, at least I believe, is that we've all been given a gift, a desire on our heart by the Lord, and we should use it to return the earth in a better state than when God left. And of course, returning the earth in a better state means bringing more to Christ, telling more humans, more individuals of the good word that Jesus Christ is the living God. And with this mindset, my life completely transformed because it was no longer about writing for me. Writing was no longer about what the world thought of my story. It only had to do with God. And was I fulfilling his wish, not his wishes, but was I fulfilling his duty? Was I fulfilling his calling for my life? And the verse, as each received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's very grace, became my reason for why I write, my reason for what I do, because it completely took the insecurity and fear out of hitting the publish button. It took the fear out of what the world would truly believe. And so with this concept and hearing that NaNoWriMo, unfortunately, will be no more, I thought to myself, wouldn't it be incredible if there was a space for Christian writers to come together and write with peace and freedom for God, to come together, use their God-given gifts to bring others to Christ, to take the focus off of themselves. Because us as humans, we constantly are thinking about us, our fears, what we want, and instead put it all on God. Don't focus on you, put it on God and put it on others. Focus on uplifting others so that you have a community of people who are all focusing on each other and God. And the order would be focus on God first, then focus on one another and see what happens. And so I decided it would be really incredible to see this community come together this November as a spiritual successor, so to speak, to NaNoWriMo. It's taking the idea of the deadline that NaNoWriMo started with that was so effective, but also adding in Jesus, adding in his glory. And so Jesus Writing Month is an event taking place this November of 2025. It'll be the first year that Jesus Writing Month occurs. And the entire idea of the event is let's bring in this community, let's bring in Jesus, and let's bring in the deadline, and let's just let it work together. Let's gather together in praise and worship in devotionals, in prayer. Let prayer be the driving factor behind this event. What would it look like to have a writing community that was a church? It was a family, not necessarily a community coming together for their passions of writing, but their passions of Jesus and then their passions of writing second in that order. And that is truly how this event was created.
I love it. I am so excited that you've created this. So congratulations to you. And I'm so looking forward to jumping in to the community and to writing another novel this November and seeing what the Lord does. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And I put all credit back on the Lord. I don't take any credit for this idea. I don't believe it came from me. And every step of the process has just proved that, where I have opened or I've knocked on so many doors and the Lord has opened every single one of them. I have had so many incredible writers on social media in this space who I would go to and they would have a significant following, many more than I had and still have at the time. And they would say yes, and they would fall in love with the concept of Jesus Writing Month. And I truly don't believe that this event would be possible, of course, without Jesus, but also I know that the Lord has been working to bring this event to what it is every single step of the way. And so truly, I put all glory goes back to him. 100%.
Amen. Awesome. And before we go, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Do you have any parting words of wisdom for the person who's fearful of starting?
100%. I would say a couple things, but first I would say is that all good comes from the Lord, and that when you spend time in his word, when you spend time praying with him every single day, make that your priority. Make God your first priority, number one. That the rest of your life, your fears, your struggles, your worries, your jobs, your kids, it all sort of just starts falling into place. And I'm young. I haven't experienced this to its fullest, but I've heard it from many people who have said, every time their life just goes off track, as soon as they just focus on God, the worries melt away. And I don't even believe it means that the actual problems in the world are always disappearing. It's more of your mindset. It's all about you because you're focused on my issues, my problems. And when you put it on God, your problems are now second. Your problems aren't as big. Your problems are so minute in comparison to our incredible living God. And so I would say that anytime you're struggling, and it sounds cliche because everyone says that, like, go pray, like, go read the Bible. It's the last thing most of us ever want to hear. But the truth is that is what brings you fulfillment. It is what heals your soul. And so I would say that anytime that you're afraid to start, anytime you're afraid to begin a new venture, to finish a book, to publish, spend time in the Word, spend time in God, pray, and then do it. I always tell people that are afraid to start that if you take a step forward and that's not the path that God wants for you, you got to trust him to close that door. If you truly are intending to honor God in every step that you have and you're going forward and God doesn't want you to go that direction, then guess what? He's not going to let you go in that direction. He's going to steer you in another way. And so allow God to steer you. Don't be afraid that what you're doing isn't his will. Don't be afraid of what the world will think, because if it's not truly God's plan, he will use that either as a stepping stone or as an opportunity to slam that door in your face and steer you into another hallway. So that would be my final word of advice, is to take a step to read the Bible, pray to God, and allow him to change your course.
Great words to finish on. Thank you so much, Justice. And I will pop all of Justice's links below and Jesus Writing Month links. And can you all please jump on board and support him, because this is an amazing thing that he is doing for our world, for our writing community. And you were created to create, and some of us were created to write. So jump in and give it a go. Thanks for hanging around till the end. Please remember to leave a review if you've enjoyed this podcast and share it with a friend. You never know who is wanting to get those words out of their head and into a book.